Hi, my name's Cameron and I'm a principal consultant at Insight. Today we're going to be looking at data center transformation for your organization. So as part of the digital WA strategy, organizations are being pushed to use more public cloud services instead of procuring new hardware or software. What this means, and part of using public cloud, is more agility, cost savings, and the ability to deliver value faster to your customers. There's a number of benefits as part of using public cloud. So dev test environments can be spun up and then turned off when they're not in use to save cost. You can rapidly prototype and rapidly scale for a number of events. This lets you scale to meet accommodating needs, but then turn it all off and save on money when you no longer need it. And lastly, you can deploy things into multiple regions, enabling higher disaster recovery and availability for all of your services, providing it to both internal and external parties. So as part of going to public cloud, it can be quite daunting and there's a number of things to consider. And a lot of the public cloud vendors give you something called a cloud adoption framework, which gives you a number of key steps to move into public cloud and some kind of key outcomes that you need to achieve through each of these phases. The one we're going to focus on is around the Microsoft space. It doesn't really matter which one you choose. It could be either public cloud provider, but based on our expertise, we're heavily aligned in the Microsoft and experts in the Microsoft space. So one of the first and initial pieces of the cloud adoption framework journey is the plan phase. The key points around the plan phase are to understand your digital estate, basically looking at all of the different workloads that are in the environment, grouping them and mapping dependencies so that you can get an understanding of the costs and what things are going to take to run when it moves to public cloud. The next piece of the plan phase is to create a skills readiness plan. What this means is upskilling your staff and training your staff so they can start leveraging the public cloud services. By moving to public cloud, you have a number of capabilities that you can leverage and will start delivering value to your business faster. You can now do backups in the clouds. You can now do disaster recovery in the cloud. So leveraging these is critical to gaining the maximum out of your return in moving to public cloud. Now, some key lessons learnt around our experience from the field. One is using assessment tools to do the heavy lifting. So it's quite daunting to go out and discover all of your infrastructure and then map all of the dependencies. Luckily, a lot of these cloud providers provide a number of tools that you can use. You can install them. They will go out and scan your environment. They will link dependencies together and help you in grouping workloads so you can start targeting them for migrations. The next piece is understanding your stakeholders and having a good CMDB. What this means is mapping these workloads to business owners so that when you go down the migration path, you can begin understanding when you can do outages, figure out what the acceptance criteria are, and then kind of negotiating the key times of when the migration can happen. And part of the plan phase is looking at workloads that you want to use to take advantage of cost savings. There's a number of cost savings available in public cloud, things like reserved instances and hybrid use benefits. Reserved instances let you buy compute upfront, and by buying it upfront, you get a discounted price by running the virtual machines. The next piece is hybrid use benefits, which means if you've bought the server licenses, you can move those licenses to the cloud and you pay a discounted price for the actual running cost of the workloads. Now, the next piece of the cloud adoption framework is ready. So we've gone out, we've done the planning, we've looked at all our workloads, we know what we're working with. Now what we need to do is build a landing zone where we can start moving workloads and deploying new workloads. As part of the ready phase, there's a few key pillars that need to be understood and addressed as part of building the landing zone. The first one is governance. Without good governance, the cloud environment will go out of control. Leveraging cloud means you've got all these capabilities, but every time you turn something on, it's going to cost you money. So good governance and good guardrails around the environment will stop this sprawl from happening. Making sure that you're compliant with only deploying workloads into Australia. You can put guardrails in place that mean you can only deploy workloads to Australia. So factoring this in up front is very important so that it doesn't grow out of control and you need to come back and fix things later. The next piece is around identity. We have an on-premises environment, we have a cloud environment. What we need to do is move the identity into the cloud so that you can start doing your authentication and also start taking advantage of new security capabilities. The next piece is networking. We can deploy the networking into a public cloud, but then we also need to connect it back to the on-premises environment. And the way this is achieved in the Microsoft world is using site-to-site VPNs to establish connectivity, or establishing ExpressRoute and using a more private connection into the Microsoft data centers. The next piece is around security. Identity is the new security perimeter. Firewalls won't protect your data. So securing the identity is critically important when you're moving to public cloud. The last one is business continuity. As I've mentioned already, you have a bunch of new data center recovery tools. You have a bunch of new high availability tools. Taking advantage of these and putting the core foundation in place around these is important. You move workloads, you want to have business continuity straight away. You don't want to move a workload and have that as an afterthought. So lessons learned from the field, leveraging the new APIs and capabilities of public cloud. We have rich APIs we can use to deploy workloads, and taking advantage of infrastructure as code and programmatic deployment will enable you to rapidly spin up resources before tearing them down and redeploying them if that's required, or incrementally improve upon your resources and your deployments and maintaining a last known good state. Don't design the landing zone the same way you would on premises. Like I mentioned, identity is the new security perimeter. Lifting up all of your firewalls and moving them to the cloud isn't going to secure things. There's more availability, there's more services. We need to change the way we think about deploying these different workloads. Now, the next piece, so we've done the plan, we've got the landing zone ready, so now we want to put workloads into the cloud. Now, what this means, we've done our assessments, we've grouped our workloads, we've identified our business stakeholders. Now we need to pick a migration approach. And there's a number of different approaches you can take. One is a lift and shift approach, like I mentioned. Just take the on-premises machine, lift and shift it into the cloud, and then cut over the services. Another one is a rehost, where you move the services and then take some of the components and turn them into platform as a service. Some of the other ways of doing things, if there's lack of support or there's no way to kind of lift and shift or completely translate it to a platform service, is to completely re-architect or rebuild the application, which is the most time-consuming, the most expensive, and probably the most complex. The best kind of approach is to look at a middle ground of lift and shift and optimization. So consolidation, not moving workloads that you don't need. As you move dev test environments, make sure they're automatically shutting down. So lifting and shifting and optimization is the most critical way of doing things. Creating a repeatable migration factory is pretty important. We want a process where we can engage the business, negotiate outages, go to change advisory boards, execute the migrations, fail them over, and then do performance testing. Then the business will need to do acceptance testing to ensure that the workload's functioning as expected and there's no unintended consequences as part of moving that to the cloud. The next piece is leveraging the as-a-service capabilities of public cloud. What this means is we've moved our workloads. You could leverage your on-premises backup, your on-premises monitoring, but we've moved it to cloud, so we now have these new capabilities around as-a-service backup and as-a-service monitoring. What this means is you can do automation, you can do integrations with all these different APIs. So the possibilities are quite endless, and leveraging those is really important to maximizing your investment. That's the end of my presentation. Thanks very much for your time.